Hi, I'm horror author Paul Edwards. Today is my birthday, and because I was born on this day in 1965, I thought today would be the perfect day for us to take a look at Famous Monsters of Filmland 1965 Yearbook. Together, let's see what kinds of vintage monster goodness is in here. What better way to celebrate my birthday than to go through the Famous Monsters of Filmland Yearbook from the year I was born. 1965, it was the first wave of monster kids. This is a picture of Glenn Strange as the Frankenstein monster on the cover. Now, Boris Karloff, of course, played the Frankenstein monster in the 1931 Frankenstein and the first two sequels. So, 3 movies. Well, Glenn Strange actually played the Frankenstein monster in the same number of films: House of Frankenstein, House of Dracula, and Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. When the Universal's classic cycle of monster movies ended, Glenn Strange was the Frankenstein monster of the day. So during the 1960s, when the first wave of monster kids were enjoying this whole boom of monster toys and puzzles and picture books and things like that, it was the face of Glenn Strange as the Frankenstein monster that made it into a whole lot of the materials. So to people, especially in my age group, the Glenn Strange version of the Frankenstein monster actually looks more familiar to us than the Boris Karloff version of the Frankenstein monster. Crazy as it sounds, I'm not comparing Glenn Strange's performance to Boris Karloff's. I'm just saying the look of the Glenn Strange Frankenstein monster is very familiar to monster kids. So here we go. Oh my gosh. What a way to start. Nice. All right. Look, for once, it's not Forrest J. Ackerman, but James Warren who's giving us the bad puns and jokes. All right. See, here's Karloff as the Frankenstein monster. You see the difference. Karloff's face is significantly thinner than Glenn Strange's. But the role had a lot more to it when Karloff played it. All right, this issue we're going to get Curse of the Werewolf, The Thing from Another World, The Scream Test, Gorgo the Gargantuan, Lon Chaney Shall Not Die, Down Below with E.A. Poe, The 7 Shuddersome Curses, Rocket to the Room Morgue, oh my gosh, Return of the Phantom, okay. And now these are reprints. Of course, this is the yearbook. This is reprints from previous Famous Monsters issues. All right. So we're starting out with the Hammer werewolf movie, Curse of the Werewolf. Under all of that makeup is Oliver Reed. There's something interesting about the Hammer werewolf. The look of the werewolf with the tattered open shirt was taken and emulated for the 2010 remake of The Wolfman. That is why the look of the 2010 Wolfman is familiar and yet not from the 1941 Wolfman, because they were actually copying the Hammer look. There's Oliver Reed, not transformed into a werewolf. He only played the werewolf in one film, but he made an impression. I felt so bad in the first act of this movie for the poor young woman who's victimized and ends up becoming the mother of the child who would grow up to be the werewolf. The Thing, released in some markets as The Thing from Another World, was one of the 5 best science fiction horror movies of the 1950s, in my opinion. It was just great. And I know a whole lot of people have grown up watching the 1982 The Thing, which is also great. But just on its own, the 1950s one is stellar. Reader's Digest. Yeah. Okay. Oh, I see. On the Scream test, they're giving us a whole bunch of true or false questions. For instance, the Time Machine was based on the book The Hands of Orlok. True or false? Yeah. Oh. So in the 60s, giant monster movies were doing very well. And the British took their turn making one, Gorgo. Gorgo is an awesome giant monster movie. If you've never seen it, basically what happens is that off the coast of this fishing village, a 40-foot tall dinosaur is discovered still alive, and it rampages around, and it's captured and brought to downtown London and put on display in Piccadilly Circus. And it turns out that the 40-foot tall monster is a baby, and its mother, the 300-foot tall dinosaur, rises up out of the sea and stamps London flat to get to her baby and rescue her baby. It's such a good movie. It's so good. As kaiju movies go, well, Gorgo was so well received that they actually had a comic book series drawn by Steve Ditko based on Gorgo. This is not an actual frame of film from the movie, but it is pretty good. See, now as a kid, I always wondered this. Why would they show you a picture of, the crowd terrified by the monster when they could easily fill that space with a picture of the monster, like this claw picture? Another good shot. I think part of what made Gorgo work was that the lighting was really good. Here comes Mama to the rescue. Lon Chaney, of course, was the archetype of all horror movie stars. And the editor-in-chief, Forrest J. Ackerman, grew up loving Lon Chaney's films. He was a movie star in the silent film era. And he played Phantom of the Opera, Hunchback of Notre Dame, and a number of other ghouls and fiends. One of which was this vampire from what is unfortunately a lost film, London After Midnight. And I have been hoping for all of my life as a fanboy that they will someday find a print of London After Midnight and we'll be able to see it. And don't say that can't happen, because other movies have been considered lost and then ultimately we've gotten them back. Somebody found a print of them somewhere. That happened with Mystery of the Wax Museum. That was a lost film for over 40 years and now we have it back. So never say never. Pit and the Pendulum. That was one of the Roger Corman, Edgar Allan Poe movies. I just love the set design in this picture. Here's where Vincent Price's character finally snaps and believes that he is his father, the cruel torturer from the olden days. Yikes. All right, come on. Tell me this doesn't look like a Conehead from Saturday Night Live. Oh my gosh. Oh. Well, you can't go wrong with a two-headed fire-breathing dragon. Oh. Baby Rodan. Unlike Baby Gorgo, though, Baby Rodan didn't need its mother to come rescue it. It just grew up almost immediately and, you know, devastated Tokyo. Here's Boris Karloff in The Black Cat. He was the bad guy in this one. He was a Satanist and a cult leader. And a traitor. He had all kinds of bad things going. This was artwork by Willis O'Brien, the man who brought King Kong to life in the 1933 original by means of stop-motion animation. This is his production artwork for how he envisioned Kong's big fight with the dinosaur. Of course, Karloff's Frankenstein. If you don't know that this is Karloff's Frankenstein, I don't understand why you're even watching this video. I'm sure everyone watching this knows that that's Karloff's Frankenstein. But just in case you don't, maybe if you're a young horror fan, okay, I can understand that. This is Dr. Cyclops. I was about to say from 1940, but I would have been proven wrong. It was actually 1939. So now, in the 1950s, there were loads of space movies, rocket ship movies, landing on other planets, that sort of thing. Tons of them. It's hard to pick out one as being the best. But I'm going to do it. Rocket Ship XM. I just love Rocket Ship XM. Probably because it doesn't have quite such a fantastical feel to it as some of the mid-50s movies would. This was just 1950 when this came out. Oh. And again, it's hard to argue against a sea monster. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. The Crimson Ghost. The Metaluna Mutant. Or as they kept saying in the movie, Mutant. That's from This Island Earth. Oh, wow. That's the Minotaur. Wow. Here's the Deadly Mantis has made a mess of cars in this tunnel. Oh! This is from actually my favorite Hammer Studios film, the 1959 version of The Mummy. And this is Christopher Lee as the Mummy. It was the only time that Lee played this particular monster. I just love the 1959 version of The Mummy. our old friend the Wolfman, of course. Here's Boris Karloff back in that same film that we saw earlier, The Black Cat, where he was the satanic cult leader. Spaceman. I own a few issues of Spaceman. I should do a video on one of those at some point. Return of the Phantom. So, of course, there had been the famous Lon Chaney Sr. Phantom of the Opera movie. Well, when they remade it with Claude Rains as the Phantom, that's the film they're covering here. So this is Return of the Phantom. Oh boy, there's Claude Rains becoming the Phantom. Yeah, see, he gets the acid in the face. And from there, the rest is terrifying history. Oh, man. Hidden horrors. Long lost and forgotten files. Monsterdom's most seldom seen off-screen creatures and faces return in Famous Monsters' exclusive series of still shots. Does that mean we're going to get behind the scenes? Oh, well, that didn't last long, did it? Huh. That's it. Okay. Well. Ooh, The Incredible Shrinking Man. No, this is not from the... This is a publicity image from The Incredible Shrinking Man. This is not an actual scene from it. There he is trying to fish the cheese out of a mousetrap. You know, nowadays, if they were going to make a film like this with a miniaturized person, they would just do it with CGI. They had to be more creative back in the old days because they didn't have computer technology to do this kind of thing. So they made miniature people scenes in a number of different ways. One was to use giant oversized props. Another was to use a technique called forced perspective. And another was to split the screen. Now look, see him running here? Okay, that's the exact same picture as him running here. See, these were publicity images. The Boy Who Became a Monster. How many people watching this video could that description characterize? All right, let's see what happens to him. Step by step. Nice. Oh. Get some back issues. I wonder why they're not showing the first few issues. This starts with number 7. Couldn't you get the first few issues on back order? I wonder. All right, well, you know, it is my birthday. Should I order some Monster merch from the Monster mail order? I probably should. Yeah, I know. The magazine is 60 years old. The prices have probably gone up. But I want How to Make a Spook Show. That looks like a good one. I don't want a mask. I like the masks. I just wouldn't like to wear one myself. I never liked having those over the face, over the head masks. They're just too much. They look good, though. You can get an LP for $1.98. That's, for younger Monster fans, an LP is a long playing record. In other words, a a vinyl album. Monster Viewer. No bulbs, no batteries. Hand action, 9 inches tall. Complete with 4 full edition films of Frankenstein, the Creature, Dracula, and the Werewolf. That's pretty good. Okay. Got me interested. I would have bought that. I really wish that they were clearer in these ads, that you're not getting the whole movie. And it drew my attention now because at the time this came out, The Vampire Bat was a very obscure movie. It's easy to see The Vampire Bat now in today's internet age. As a matter of fact, The Vampire Bat is on my YouTube channel under my All Night Spook Show podcast. So you can watch it there. It's one of the first movies I have up. But at the time this came out in 1965, very few monster kids would have ever seen The Vampire Bat. So you might think that you were sending away and getting the whole rare movie, The Vampire Bat. But you weren't. You were getting one reel of film with, maybe 10 or 11 minutes of footage on it with just highlights from the movie. Aw, yeah. Okay. First and second wave monster kids bought these in large numbers. The first wave was the kids who were reading this magazine in 1965 when it came out. I was busy being born. The second wave of monster kids was my era, the ones who were reading this magazine 10 years in the future, in the 1970s. But these sold so well, they were in both the 60s and 70s. So a whole lot of you out there might remember these models. I still have the Godzilla one. Not in good condition. He's missing a claw and everything, but I do have it. And I know a lot of you have told me in comments on other things that you had the King Kong. Did anybody here have any others of these? If I could have only one more, I would probably take the Dracula one. I like the addition of the bat. That's good. Customizing Monster Kit, huh? Yeah. Okay. Drop Dead? Oh. What did I do wrong? A good test of whether you were a monster kid was if you were listening to these kind of like Halloween sound effects records when it wasn't near Halloween. Ooh, monster trading cards. See, when I was a kid, I wouldn't have thought this was funny. Frankenstein losing his pants. I would have just thought that was dumb. I liked the things that looked like they were really from the movies. Have you always wanted a live monkey? Yes, by the way, this is not a trick. They actually really were selling live monkeys through mail order. And I won't do a whole video on this. You can look it up elsewhere online. But it didn't always end well for the monkeys or for the children who bought them. Ooh, lifelike skeleton hand. Honestly, when I was a kid, I would have wanted the Mystery Man mask. That would have appealed to me. I would have been like, hey, I can be a neighborhood superhero. The fact that I don't have any superpowers probably would, make being a superhero a lot harder, but I would have just liked the idea of wearing a mask around. I'm kind of worried about this one, though. You may think this is the one to worry about. I don't think so. I think this is the one to worry about. Watch the miracle of birth before your very eyes. Is it like an egg incubator? It is. It's like an egg incubator. Oh, man. Okay. A whole lot of us had this. I haven't. This is pretty good. The cover shows you a whole bunch of monsters. The fact of the matter is, one side of this vinyl album has a Frankenstein story. Side 1 is a Frankenstein story. And side 2 is a Dracula story. They were done by this guy who did a whole lot of voice acting. None of these other monsters have stories on this record, though. It's just those two. This is a little off topic, but anytime I see one of these paint by numbers things, all I can think of is, remember on the TV show Columbo, the detective show Columbo, when Columbo was visiting an art gallery and he's telling the art exhibit curator, oh, my wife does some painting too. Oh, does she really? Yeah, well, just those ones where you paint on the numbers. Oh my gosh. The first time I saw that, I was cracking up. Oh. Well, this is not my area, but one of you might be able to tell me. 200 feet of 8mm film is how much runtime? How much are you getting from Rodan? My guess would be a few minutes. Oh. First time paperback, the best from Famous Monsters. Ooh. Isn't that what this is, though? Aren't these yearbooks the best of for each year? Ooh. Oh, you can get monster wallets. 2 monsters on each wallet. That's not bad. I would probably look a little silly with a monster wallet now that I'm 60, as of today, but what the heck? Maybe because I'm 60, I can do what I want, so I should find one on eBay. I'm sure they're out there. All right. Hey, thanks for spending a part of my birthday looking through the 1965 yearbook of Famous Monsters of Filmland with me. If you enjoy vintage monsters and classic horror, check out my book series, the Mourner's Woods books. I'm self-published on Amazon. I have 6 novels in print as of this video. I'm working on the 7th. My books all take place in a haunted forest called Mourner's Woods. Each book introduces a completely new cast of characters into the forest where they encounter monsters, banshees, ghosts, and the like. I recapture the feel and vibe of vintage monster movies, but of course in printed form and set in a contemporary setting. My books, again, are the Mourner's Woods books. They're for sale on Amazon. My name is Paul Edwards. Thanks for looking through the Famous Monsters of Filmland 1965 yearbook with me. I'll see you in Mourner's Woods.